Section 2. Consciousness Non Locality. A consequence of this neutral monist position is to undermine the foundations of the classical realist ontology, which underlies the materialist reductive consensus regarding explanations of mind and consciousness. Hodgson says, quantum physics confirms that the world uninterpreted by the mind can be considered as a cosmic code. The conclusion that Hodgson draws from this is that there cannot be any simple identity between brain and mind at the level of neurons and neural firings. In other words, the mind is not a function of neurons and neural firings. He suggests instead that both mental events and neural firings are functions of the development of the underlying state of the brain. And he's clear that, contrary to the consensus view, mental events must relate more directly to the quantum level than to the macroscopic level. It's also true that macroscopic events within the brain will, as a matter of fact, have extensive correlations with the mental events of subjective experience and action. This may be the origin of the consensus delusion that mental events can be reduced to neural firings at the macro level. Both mental events and the development of quantum physical states demonstrate non-locality. This, according to Hodgson, strongly indicates a close relationship between consciousness and quantum processes. He gives several examples from the functioning of the brain-mind to illustrate this. Firstly, he points out that the neural underpinnings of perception may occur over large and perhaps spatially separated areas of the brain. Hodgson says that the perception of an object involves events in the brain associated with detection of many features of the appearance of the object, and with recognition of and consequent beliefs about the object. Such events must involve many neurons and accordingly some spatial extension. However, subjectively, the perception of an object is a unified experience which at any instant of time includes detection of many features of the object's appearance together with beliefs about what the object is. Somehow, it would seem the subjective experience has to take in all at once and non-sequentially contributions from extended and perhaps separate regions of the brain. His suggestion is that quantum non-locality is responsible for converting these sequential and spatially separated macro events into a unitary and immediate conscious perception. Having looked at perception, Hodgson extends these considerations to include every experience action. All of these involve physical brain events separated out in space, including some, at least, of the following: sensation events, cognition events, Other association events involving memory and understanding, affective events, appreciation, enjoyment, pain, emotion, and action events. All of these events are associated with signals passing around the brain at less than the speed of light, yet apparently may be combined non-sequentially in association with a unified conscious experience action. Such a conscious experience appears to be unified, to comprise many aspects presented all at once, to embrace many features which must be contributed to by events spanning appreciable space. Not only does a complete experience appear to be present to consciousness at each instant, but also changes to different aspects of that experience appear similarly to be simultaneously present to consciousness, together with the remainder of the experience continuing unchanged. If I am watching a moving object, I see its movement and the still background at the same time. In other words, there is a paradox here. In compliance with the theory of relativity, signals move around the brain at less than the speed of light. But any conscious experience which apparently arises from this sequence of signals is instant and simultaneous. So mental events appear to be indifferent to spatial separation. They bring together non-sequentially elements associated with spatially separated physical events. Hodgson uses the example of visual perception. This, he says, seems to place images in space around an observer, with the experiencer subject being placed, if anywhere, behind the eyes of the person in question. This suggests that mental events somehow span space so as to enable simultaneous experiencing of and acting upon matters associated with spatially separated physical events. Hodgson then invokes quantum states as the only possible scientific explanation for this. He says, consistent with the theory of relativity, there can be simultaneous correlations effected between space-like separated events only in the quantum world. That is, in the world of potentialities comprised in quantum states. The existence of EPR correlations between such states, and also the non-local correlations of probabilities associated with any collapse of a quantum state, show that, to some extent, quantum states are indifferent to spatial separation in a way which, consistently with the theory of relativity, macroscopic physical events cannot be. Clearly, what Hodgson is suggesting here is an association between mental events and the development of quantum states. This strong association may fall short of a causal explanation. He says, I am not asserting that the unity of conscious experience is provided specifically by EPR correlations, or indeed by any particular kind of quantum non-locality. merely that quantum states have this property of non-locality in various respects, and this general property seems to be what is necessary to explain the unity of consciousness. On the other hand, it does, he claims, cast considerable doubt on the consensus computational explanation. For a decision to be based on all available information, such information must be coordinated either in stages or all at once. A computer achieves this in stages by cause and effect. This is perhaps most obvious in relation to a Turing machine, where the different pieces of coded information are correlated by steps dictated by the information itself and by the organization of the machine. In the brain, however, perhaps quantum processes can enable all the available information to be mentally correlated instantaneously. As if, I contend, conscious experience makes an irreducible difference, then the whole experience must enter into the causal order at whatever location or locations in the brain the choice becomes manifest. And for this to happen, its parts and their correlations must be simultaneously effective, so that each part can simultaneously contribute to the one action or decision. And this in turn suggests the instantaneous correlations which do exist between spatially separated quantum potentialities. Given the plausibility of this proposed association between mental events and quantum states, Hodgson suggests that it may now be possible to answer a question posed by the non-local character of quantum states as shown by Bell's theorem. He cites Herbert's 1986 formulation of this question. Why does nature need to deploy a faster-than-light subatomic reality to keep up merely light-speed macroscopic appearances? And provides the answer to make possible consciousness and mental events. Let's be clear that Herbert, using the concept of nature's motivations, is using the concept in a metaphorical sense. The physical world has evolved just as the biological world has, in conjunction with it, in terms of what worked in promoting survival and reproduction. For creatures of our size, the macro world, with its classical characteristics, has proved highly adaptive for our evolutionary success. All the while, however, nature was using the more fundamental characteristics of the quantum world at the micro level of our brains to foster the evolution of a causally effective consciousness.